Within the world of fear, every creator is a chapter. Some whispered, some screamed. Tonight, we turn the page on the storytellers who shaped our shivers. This is Working the Fright Shift.
Clock into Working the Fright Shift, the gateway between imagination and fear, with your host, Ted Doherty.
Welcome to Working the Fright Shift. I'm Ted Doherty, your host, and tonight, the incomparable Jonathan Casco of the Hauntline steps into our Hall of Horrors to discuss the craft of terror. But before we ascend the staircase, let's unfurl this week's Horror Blueprint.
The Horror Blueprint, the art behind the fear.
The life and legacy of John Michael Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself. From the haunted riffs of Black Sabbath to the outrageous antics of his solo career, Ozzy didn't just shape heavy metal, he carved his name into the legacy of horror. In 1968, in the industrial town of Birmingham, England, four young men, Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, they formed Black Sabbath. Their sound was heavy, ominous, unlike anything before. Critics at the time called it sinister, even dangerous. Sabbath's debut album, Black Sabbath from 1970, followed by Paranoid and Master of Reality, introduced audiences to distorted guitars, doom-laden lyrics, and Ozzy's haunting voice. Geezer Butler once said, "The press hated us, but the fans loved us, which made us that much closer to our fans." And, well, that's the paradox. While critics dismissed them as noise, fans embraced them as prophets of a new genre, heavy metal. Ozzy's eerie delivery made him the face of music's dark side. By 1979, Ozzy was fired from Sabbath for substance abuse, but instead of fading, he exploded. His solo debut, Blizzard of Oz, in 1980, with one of the greats of all time, guitarist Randy Rhoads, gave us classics like Crazy Train. But it wasn't just the music, it was the madness. So we know that Ozzy bit the head off a bat on stage in Iowa in 1982, an incident that cemented his horror reputation. He also bit the head off of a dove during a record label meeting and infamously urinated on the Alamo Monument, earning a decade-long ban from San Antonio. His lyrics often flirted with horror themes. Songs like Mr. Crowley invoked occult imagery, while Suicide Solution sparked lawsuits accusing him of inciting tragedy. Devil's Daughter focuses on demonic possession, and Spiders covers, of course, arachnid horror, and the list goes on and on. As biographer Mick Wall put it, Ozzy embodied chaos, but in that chaos was a strange kind of genius. In 1996, Ozzy and Sharon launched Ozzfest, a touring festival that became a mecca for horror-inspired metal bands. Acts like Slipknot, Marilyn Manson, and Rob Zombie all performed. Ozzfest wasn't just a concert, it was a total event, a carnival of darkness. Ozzy's merchandise leaned into the macabre as well. Album covers like Diary of a Madman and Bark at the Moon were totally horror-themed. And for Bark at the Moon, released in 1983, this was Ozzy's third solo album, and the title track wasn't just another heavy metal anthem. It was a full-blown horror story set to music. The lyrics tell of a creature buried alive, cursed, and then unleashed to terrorize the world. Classic werewolf, right? And Ozzy leaned into that imagery all in. The Bark at the Moon music video was Ozzy's first official MTV-era video, and it is pure gothic horror camp. We see him as this mad scientist mixing potions, holding brains, basically playing Dr. Frankenstein, and of course, he transforms into a snarling werewolf. The video was shot at Holloway Sanitarium, a real asylum in England, which gave it this eerie authenticity. Imagine those candlelit corridors, padded cells, and Ozzy in full monster mode. It's like a Hammer horror film collided with MTV. And the makeup? Legendary Ozzy's werewolf look was designed by Greg Canham. I've mentioned him before. He got his start at Not Scary Farm in the 1970s, and this is the same guy who later won Oscars for Bram Stoker's Dracula and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Canham gave Ozzy shaggy fur, glowing eyes, and those grotesque fangs. And Canham actually said that Ozzy was one of the most enthusiastic performers he had ever worked with in prosthetics. Ozzy loved the monster persona. He wasn't just tolerating it, he was reveling in it. And the video ends with this duality. On one side, Ozzy reunited with his wife looking almost normal, and on the other, his werewolf alter ego howling from a balcony. It's pure Jekyll and Hyde, a horror finale that's super fun. The whole thing cemented Ozzy's image as more than just a rock star. He was a monster, a horror icon, a living nightmare brought to life on MTV. So when people call Ozzy the Prince of Darkness, Bark at the Moon is Exhibit A. It wasn't just a song. It was a horror short film, a transformation, and a declaration that Ozzy wasn't just singing about monsters. He was becoming one. And speaking of monsters, in 2013, Universal Studios Hollywood unveiled the Black Sabbath 13 3D maze at Halloween Horror Nights. Fans walked through scenes inspired by Sabbath songs, from a graveyard with skeletal figures to fiery pits echoing war pigs. The maze ended with a demonic cathedral, Ozzy's voice echoing in the darkness. And of course, we can't forget MTV's The Osbournes that ran from 2002 through 2005. Suddenly, the Prince of Darkness was a lovable dad, arguing with Sharon, wrangling his kids, and swearing at the family dogs. It showed the world that behind the horror persona was a human being, flawed, funny, and surprisingly tender. Ozzy sold over 100 million albums and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Black Sabbath in 2006 and as a solo artist in 2024, and received the Golden Icon Award at the MTV Europe Music Awards in 2014. Aside from the awards, Ozzy cameoed in films like Little Nicky, where he bites a bat to save the day, Austin Powers in Goldmember, and even voiced King Thrash in Trolls World Tour. In the cult horror film Trick or Treat from 1986, he played a televangelist denouncing rock music, which was a perfect role for this rock god to play. Ozzy blurred the line between music and horror, between spectacle and sincerity. He shocked us. He scared us. He made us laugh, sometimes all at once. As horror historian Ian Christie once said, Ozzy didn't just sing about darkness. He lived it. And in doing so, he gave fans a safe place to explore their own fears. On July 22, 2025, Ozzy's voice fell silent. He died at 76 after a heart attack, with his wife Sharon by his side. Sharon later recalled his final words, "Kiss me, hug me tight." Those words, tender, human, remind us that behind the chaos and the controversy was a man deeply connected to love and family. His passing was mourned worldwide, with tributes pouring in from fans from all over the planet. Just weeks before his death, Ozzy headlined a farewell concert in Birmingham, aptly titled Back to the Beginning, where 40,000 fans celebrated his life and music. It was live streamed across the world. It was a fitting curtain call for a man who had spent decades redefining what it meant to be dark, dangerous, and unforgettable. Ozzy Osbourne's death closed the book on one of music's most shocking, most brilliant chapters. But his influence lives on. He gave us permission to embrace fear and to laugh at it. And that is the brilliance, the impact, and the eternal shock of Ozzy Osbourne, who will forever be lurking inside the horror blueprint. I hope you enjoyed this week's horror blueprint, but now it's time to meet somebody who doesn't just study that craft, he amplifies it. Our next guest, Jonathan Casco, has become one of the most distinctive voices in the haunt community. Through the Hauntline, he has brought a cinematic, documentary-level lens to the world of Halloween. It's all mixed with live streams and reviews, and that talent hasn't gone unnoticed. His promotional work for companies like Plague Productions and major events such as Midsummer Scream has helped define the look, the tone, and excitement of the modern haunt scene. Jonathan Casco isn't just covering Halloween, he's shaping how we see it, and is this week's Fear Architect.
Fear Architects, crafting worlds of terror.
Welcome to Working the Fright Shift, Jonathan. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you are here. Thank you so much for doing this. Jonathan, how are you?
Great, Ted. It's great to be here. I'm always available for a fright shift, let me tell you.
Oh, I appreciate it, Jonathan. Where are you calling us from today?
I'm currently at my parents' house in Bellflower, just visiting them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was actually born in a hospital in Bellflower, so that's
no way. That's wild.
Yes. But more important things, Jonathan, I have questions for you. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm so ready, Ted. I'm so ready.
Okay, Jonathan, we're going to rewind. Start at the beginning. What first pulled you into Halloween? Was it a childhood obsession, a single formative moment, or something that developed later on in life?
It was definitely something that developed later on in life. I wish I could say that Halloween has been with me since childhood, but I grew up in a very religious household, so Halloween was incredibly taboo. However, it was one of those things that, I always had a curiosity about. I think what really pulled me, though, were theme parks, like theme park Halloween events, and specifically The Mummy Returns Chamber of Doom at Universal Studios Hollywood. That was kind of like my first real haunted attraction, my first real walkthrough. And since then, I was absolutely hooked. I was like, whoa, I need more of this. What an amazing experience to be not in a ride vehicle. You're kind of vulnerable walking through this experience, and, you're getting hit from left and right, above, below. I loved it.
I love that attraction too. Now, aside from that attraction, and if we think about before the Hauntline existed, what was your overall relationship with haunts and horror media and themed entertainment?
Sure. I mean, horror was always, again, like very taboo for me, but I always had a curiosity. So I would watch horror movies with friends, obviously not really at my house, or my sister was big into horror movies too. So I grew up on like Scream, early 2000s horror. I Know What You Did Last Summer. The craze of the slasher, and that really drew me into it. And then back when it was called Shipwreck, Queen Mary was my first actual haunt. Again, I went with my sister, and that was like, the first full production that I had seen. And I was absolutely hooked on it. I was drawn to it. I needed more of it. But then I took a long time before I went back to a haunt. And it wasn't until 2009 that I went back to Halloween Horror Nights. And then that was, again, kind of eye-opening for me, and being like, wow, okay, I really enjoy this. And then 2011, I started going to Not Scary Farm. And that's what really solidified my love for the genre and for haunts in general. But after that, like before going to Scary Farm in 2011, I was already really in love with horror movies. I love a good scare. And I think a lot of people can identify with this. I'm riddled with anxiety, but the horror genre somehow helps me. And I think it helps a lot of people too. And there's like scientific studies about that. So there's always been a kinship there for sure.
Amen to horror. I love it. Now, I have to ask. So, for your first experience at Shipwreck, what was your impression? What was that like? I mean, that was a pretty hardcore event, pre-Dark Harbor at Queen Mary.
Yeah, oh, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I think I was maybe I had just graduated middle school. So I think I was well, maybe it was actually I think I had just gotten out of 6th grade, so I was going into middle school. But yeah, terrifying, absolutely terrifying, but so much fun. Like obviously you start out the night as a kid being like, I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know, this might be too much for me. But a couple of minutes in, we're laughing, we're screaming, we're running around. At one point, I'm sure it was either my sister or my her ex-husband had told one of the performers my buddy's name. So, we're walking through the maze and one of the performers walks up to him and he's like, Fabian. And we're like, wow, how does he know? How does he know? Again, it started terrifying, but much like a lot of these haunt events, and I hope for anybody that's like maybe worried about going to one of these events, yes, it is scary, but boy, is it a lot of fun.
I totally agree. Now, we think about you discovering these different events, going to horror nights, going to Not Scary Farm. Time passes. What was the spark that led you to create the Hauntline? Was there like a specific event or maze, a conversation? What made you think, oh my gosh, okay, I need to start this show?
The pandemic was really the crux of it all. Like, I had always had some sort of YouTube show, or I was always doing something media related or content creation related. And then I realized throughout the years that there was never a ton of like dedicated channels to haunts. And so, I saw kind of a hole in the market. I had started the Hauntline as an audio podcast in 2019, and that was a lot of fun. So that kind of sparked my curiosity a little bit. But then in 2020, I was like, you know what? I mean, we're sitting here not doing anything. I've got a bunch of gear. I've got everything that I need to start it. Let's do it. So it was truly just the opportunity from the pandemic to just be able to sit down and make these videos. And, I've been hooked ever since. I love the creation of haunt specific content.
Well, I can say this. It's my opinion that the production value of the Hauntline to me is incredibly high, cinematic, polished. You're very, very talented, Jonathan. So how
Thanks, Ted.
did you develop that visual style? And also, what does your production process look like behind the scenes?
Sure. I mean, the visual style definitely comes from like Goosebumps, 90s horror, early 2000s horror. I'm very inspired by the VHS of it all, 80s horror. So, I wanted to lean into that pretty heavily from the beginning. I knew that's what I wanted the aesthetic to be, because there's something kind of inherently, to me at least, nostalgic about Halloween, because, it's rooted in so many different things. And, again, the 80s, 90s VHS, that's what I grew up on. I grew up on analog tape. And so like I love the aesthetic of that, and that's where I leaned into that. As far as like the production process goes, like I'd love to say that it involves a lot of planning on my part, and I really sit down and think about these things for days. They're typically just ideas floating around in my head that sometimes I put pen to paper and I just make it happen. But I've been honing my skills in audio and video for a long time. I've always kind of been in content creation, and when I'm not doing the Hauntline, I am a videographer. I do live sound for all kinds of different productions. So it's just one of those things where I had these skills already for a long time. I studied radio, television production. So it's just stuff that has always been with me and I've always been curious about. But I do enjoy the process of sitting down and writing a script, pre-production, production, post-production. I'm very comfortable in all those aspects. But yeah, again, it's just kind of like an idea pops into my head. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this sounds like fun. Let's do that.
Well, I'm glad that you do that, Jonathan. Good job with all of it. Now, over the years with the Hauntline, you have covered a lot of Halloween Horror Night stuff. In your opinion, this is a tough one.
Oh,
What are the top HHN Hollywood mazes of all time that you've gone through? And what makes them stand out either from a design perspective, storytelling?
Sure. The first one that pops into my head is Alien versus Predator, because that was one of those properties when I heard it announced. I was like, no way. It's just one of those that I never thought they would do. And they did some really incredible stuff with that maze in terms of scenic. I mean, to walk in and the first thing you see is a giant crashed ship. Really incredible. The way that they used puppetry in that maze was unlike anything we had really seen before then. To see the xenomorph in person, I mean, I feel like it's every horror person's dream come true, every horror fan's dream come true, or nightmare, I guess.
Yep.
And then, same with the Predator in full armor. And there was a lot of cool face-off moments in that maze. It really blew my mind. Another one that really sticks out to me is Crimson Peak, because just visually and from an audio perspective, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And I guess if I had to choose a third, for sure, Us comes to mind.
Oh.
A truly incredibly faithful adaptation from screen to maze of a property that I had, it was just, there was excellent work done there in terms of scenic storytelling, recreating the sets, recreating some of the best moments from the film. That's definitely one that I walked out of going like, dang, I need to come back and see this immediately.
I agree with all of those. Just amazing. But now let's shift gears to the East Coast because, well, like me, we're both big fans of HHN in Orlando. What are the standout haunted houses over there for you, and how do you feel their creative philosophies differ between Hollywood's and Orlando's?
Oh, brother, Ted, this could be the whole podcast right here. Truly. I mean, Orlando does such an amazing job of creating truly immersive experiences. The philosophy is they think outside the box all the time. And they just go for it, which is, really admirable. It's something that I admire about Not Scary Farm too, is that they're not afraid to try it. They're not afraid to go for it. I do love that Orlando has a bigger focus on original content, original stories. Like to answer your question, last year, right away, El Artista, a Spanish haunting, pops up in my head as probably one of top 5, maybe top 3 that Orlando has ever created. Just from a scenic standpoint, I mean, they built a whole gothic house full of Halloween tricks and ghosts and gargoyles and, all kinds of fun effects. Pepper's ghosts. I mean, oh my God, it was truly incredible. But yeah, it's their focus on creating not only super immersive environments, but also crafting original stories that I really love. Some of my favorites in Orlando have been original stories: Graveyard Games, Descendants of Destruction, or Seeds of Extinction. Sorry, the Descendants was the sequel. Seeds of Extinction, Yeti, Terror of the Yukon. Chupacabra. I mean, there's so many that I can name that have no ties to any IP, and yet you walk out of them going, wow, I got what was happening. And boy, were these settings just completely gorgeous and immersive. So yeah, it's nuts. They really focus on the original content. And I hope that Hollywood allows themselves to lean into that a little bit more, because we've seen success with that. Scarecrow, The Reaping, was a huge hit out here in Hollywood. Holidays in Hell. People love horror. People love being scared, whether it be an IP or not. Look at Not Scary Farm.
Well, on that note, and by the way, I mean, all of those houses out there in Orlando are just incredible. But on that note, we think about Not Scary Farm. We think about Queen Mary's Dark Harbor, Six Flags Fright Fest, things outside of Universal here in Southern California. What are some of your all-time favorite mazes or moments from these different events? And I know these are tough questions.
Oh, man. I mean, so, of course, Not Scary Farm is always going to have a very special place in my heart. I mean, the things that they create there, like I said just now, they go for it, and I love that. But I got to shout out 2018's Horror Made Here. Warner Brothers really went for it when they created that event, and they offered us some really, really unique experiences. Like, I'll never forget seeing Jason Voorhees literally walking out of the lake and walking toward us as we're walking through a literal forest. Like, where else can you get that? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or even like they did The Exorcist, the Forbidden Screening, which was like a really fun interactive movie, essentially, or a little short. Horror Made Here went for it. They made a difference. And like, again, not Scary Farm with things like Paranormal Inc. Mm-hmm. I mean, a great testament to like storytelling and immersion. Or even when they did, the first couple of years when they did Infected, I mean, who would ever thought like, hey, we're going to just take over a whole land in a theme park. Here's a gun, a laser gun, go for it, go get them zombies. So, it's amazing what we do here in SoCal and what we go for. And of course, Dark Harbor, Queen Mary, to be on a haunted ship in a haunted attraction. Mm-hmm. You can't get that anywhere else, man.
Now, for folks who may have never been to any of these major events like Horror Nights or Knott's or Dark Harbor, Fright Fest, what are some of your general top pointers for getting the most out of the night, whether it's strategy, mindset, must-see elements?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first strategy that comes to mind always is to go earlier in the season. The later in the season, the busier it gets, the more expensive it gets too. I always try to advise people to go not on a Friday, not on a Saturday, to try and just get the most of it. And also, I'm a sucker for this too. Arrive early. Always arrive early. Try to get there as early as you can. Whatever is the earliest admittance you can get, just so you can enjoy your night, just so you can have a good time. Honestly, it's just about prioritizing the things that you want to see and making those your top priority. And go with a good group. Go with a good group of friends who, are there, are in it to win it, are committed to the bit, and you'll have an amazing time. But yes, absolutely. Please just get there early, go early in the season. You'll have a great time.
Great pointers. And as a trusted voice in the Halloween and haunt community, I trust your opinion. How do you balance being a fan, a critic, and documenting all of these different haunts while still keeping the magic, that passion alive?
For sure. I made a deal with myself. I told myself early on in the process of being or of producing the Hauntline, I got to keep it fun. Like the second that it starts becoming work or that it becomes overbearing, then, I have a problem. There's an issue there. But that's the key, is that I want to keep it fun. When I go and cover events, I make a list. I try to do some pre-production, but if I don't get to stuff, it's like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out in post. I've met a lot of incredible people through the process, yourself included, Ted. I've gotten to work with a lot of incredible people, and it's stuff like that where it helps keep the magic alive too. Because I'm like, I know the people behind this project. I know the faces behind this project. I've met a lot of amazing friends too. So yeah, the focus is always fun, keeping it fun, and making sure that it doesn't consume me in a negative way.
Very, very good. I only have a couple more questions for you, Jonathan. Now, looking ahead, what does the future of the Hauntline look like? Are there new formats that you might explore, collaborations, expansions? What does it look like?
So the live streams have been doing really well. People love the live streams. We have people that tune in. Anytime that we do them, the audience is growing there. So live streams are definitely in the future for sure. I do want to focus on making more documentary style videos because I really enjoy doing those. They take a lot of time. So I commend people like Bright Sun Films or Expedition Theme Park or Yesterworld, any of those folks who do that, because boy, is it a lot of work, let me tell you. I mean, Ted, you wrote a book on the history of Not Scary Farm. You know exactly how much work it is. And collaborations, I have some names written down that I'm hoping to get on the show that both are like haunt creatives, but also haunt performers. There's stuff coming down the line that I'm really excited about that I hope comes to fruition. Hopefully a lot of interviews too, and a lot of really incredible haunt creatives that I just want to get on the show to chit chat about haunt in general.
Now, just a couple small little things. Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. On YouTube, youtube.com/the Hauntline. We're on Instagram and on Twitter at the Hauntline. We're also on TikTok. I got to post more there, but we're on TikTok at the Hauntline. Pretty much at the Hauntline, anywhere that you can find social media, we're there.
All right. Now, one weird final question. Would you rather be the misunderstood local cryptid or the overly enthusiastic amateur ghost hunter? And why? So, for example, Sasquatch with a heart of gold versus the obnoxious night vision YouTuber with no chill.
I feel like I'm partially both right now, both for sure. But, I think definitely the misunderstood local cryptid, because that's kind of how I feel anyways. Like, anytime that I do talk about Halloween, I feel like I'm like, hey, anybody? Huh? Anybody else really into it like this? But, I've always loved Bigfoot. King Kong is one of my favorite monsters. And, King Kong, he was just doing his thing. He had his daily routine, and they came in and screwed it all up. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the misunderstood local cryptid is definitely where I identify. Because then also you can continue to be a little mysterious. Ooh, did you see me? Did I move the branches? Ooh, what's going on here?
I love it. Jonathan, thank you so much for working the Fright Shift. I really appreciate you, Jonathan, for sharing your take on fear. Everybody be sure to follow the Hauntline. But now, I want to zoom out a little bit. It's time for me to take a look back at the moments and the makers who shaped how I approach this work in Echoes of the Past.
Echoes of the Past. The origins of scare experiences.
Tonight, I'm stepping into a very special corner of haunt history. The places where the scares don't just pretend to be real. These are attractions built inside actual historic locations, prisons, ships, mansions, and forgotten spaces where the walls themselves have stories to tell. As my friend, historian, author Lisa Morton once said, a location with a past doesn't need to be dressed up to be scary. It already knows how to whisper. And for me, as a fellow historian and a creator of haunted experiences, I'm right there with Lisa. So let's listen to some of those whispers. Let's begin with a place that looks like it was designed by a Gothic novelist, Old Joliet Prison in Chicago. Built in 1858, this limestone fortress has seen everything. Civil War prisoners, notorious criminals, and decades of abandonment. It's so cinematic that it became the filming location for the Blues Brothers. In recent years, it's also become home to the Old Joliet Haunted Prison, a haunt that leans into the prison's real history of riots, escapes, and overcrowding. And when 13th Floor Entertainment Group took over their Halloween event, I got to work on some of the awesome experiences for that location. One reviewer once said, "You don't have to suspend disbelief here. The building does the work for you." And honestly, I think they're right. Next, we head east to one of the most architecturally influential prisons in the world, Eastern State Penitentiary, opened in 1829. This place was revolutionary, the first to use the separate system, where inmates were kept in solitary confinement to encourage remorse. Charles Dickens visited in 1842 and wrote that the silence was cruel and wrong. Over the years, Eastern State has presented some incredible haunts, and today it hosts Halloween Nights, a massive multi-attraction event that blends immersive theater, haunted houses, and historical tours. It's one of the earliest examples of a major haunt built inside a preserved historic site, and it set the standard on how to balance authenticity with entertainment. Now let's head south to Tampa, Florida, where the Vault of Souls transformed the historic 1923 Exchange National Bank into a high-end, immersive ghost story. My pal Scott Swenson helped create this one. And this isn't your typical jump scare haunt. It's elegant, mysterious, atmospheric, a kind of haunted Gatsby party. Guests wander through marble halls and old bank vaults while interacting with spirits trapped between worlds. It's a reminder that not all haunts need to be loud to be terrifying. Sometimes the quietest ghosts linger the longest. Now, another Scott Swenson experience, and just a few miles away, Tampa doubled down on nautical nightmares with Undead in the Water, a haunt staged aboard the American Victory ship, a fully operational World War II cargo vessel launched in 1945. Every year, the storyline changes, sometimes zombies, sometimes cults, sometimes military experiments gone wrong, but the star of the show is always the ship itself. And of course, these aren't the only haunts that embrace their historic bones. There's tons out there, but a few worth mentioning is the Preston Castle in Ion, California, which was a reform school originally housed in the San Quentin State Prison. It was saved from demolition in the 1960s and turned into a state historic landmark, and also houses a popular Halloween event every season. Then there's the Dent Schoolhouse in Cincinnati, Ohio, set in a real 19th century school. According to what I could find, several kids went missing from there from 1942 through 1955. And now there's a scary haunted house inside. It's freaky. Then there's the USS Nightmare in Newport, Kentucky, that takes place on an actual decommissioned steam-powered side-wheel dredge boat on the Ohio River. According to their site, there were 112 crew members who died on there in only 45 years of service. And now it's a scary haunted attraction. Amazing. Now, each of these attractions, well, they prove that when you start with a real location, you're already halfway to a great story. And these are just a handful. Like I said, there's a bunch more out there. But I want to shift to a place that practically invented the concept of architectural haunting. The Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. Built continuously from 1886 to 1922 by Sarah Winchester, the mansion is a labyrinth of staircases to nowhere, doors that open into walls, and rooms built to confuse the spirits she believed were following her. For years, the Winchester Mystery House has hosted Halloween events, from flashlight tours to full haunted attractions, and it remains one of the most iconic examples of a real haunted location becoming a Halloween destination. So it seems that sometimes the scariest blueprints are the ones drawn by grief. But now, I want to get to the grand dame of haunted locations, the RMS Queen Mary. Launched in 1936, she served as a luxury ocean liner, a World War II troop ship known as the Gray Ghost, and eventually a permanently docked hotel in Long Beach, California. The Queen Mary has been called one of the most haunted ships in the world. Time magazine once wrote that the ship has more ghosts than staterooms. Naturally, she became the perfect setting for a Halloween event. And the Queen Mary's first major Halloween event that I know of was named Shipwrecked, which ran from 1995 to 2008. It was raw, gritty, totally chaotic and fun. But in 2009, the event evolved into Queen Mary's Dark Harbor, which quickly became one of Southern California's most famous, most loved Halloween scream parks. Because Dark Harbor isn't a theme park, and it wasn't a single haunted house. It was a full-scale scream park. Multiple mazes, bars, shows, roaming monsters, industrial nautical aesthetic that felt unlike anything else in this region. And the best part? 3, sometimes up to 4 of the mazes actually took place on the ship itself. And that, to me, is where the magic happened. Dark Harbor's creative team at that time were my friends at Epic Entertainment and Myco2, and they really leaned into the Queen Mary's real history. Sometimes it was a little exaggerated, sometimes embellished, but always rooted in, or at least inspired by, the ship's legends. And that approach gave birth to some of the event's most iconic characters: Scary Mary, the Captain, Half-Hatch Henry, Graceful Gale, the Ringmaster, the Voodoo Queen, Samuel the Savage. And in 2018 and 19, well, I had the privilege of joining John Cook and the team at Plague Productions to help reimagine some of these attractions for Dark Harbor. And working on that ship, that actual haunted ship, well, that was an experience I'm never going to forget. The steel groans, the temperature drops, the way that the hallways seem to shift when you're alone. It's a designer's dream and a skeptic's nightmare. And before I share one of my favorite attractions that I worked on, I want to kind of paint the picture for those who never experienced it. Dark Harbor's filled with grit. It's loud, theatrical, tons of character, fire cannons, circus performers, speakeasies hidden inside of the mazes. It was a Halloween festival wrapped in a rusted metal and sea fog. But for me, the crown jewels were always the ship-based mazes. And for me, none was more infamous than B340. So B340 is widely considered the most haunted stateroom aboard the Queen Mary. Guests have reported everything from shadow figures to objects moving on their own. And before we got involved, the maze version of B340 kind of centered on a character named Samuel the Savage, a man who supposedly murdered passengers during a voyage, and he was locked in his stateroom and then mysteriously vanished overnight. A guard stood outside the door the entire time. The porthole was too small to escape through, and yet Samuel was gone. Earlier versions of the maze dove into Samuel's fractured psyche, surreal, psychedelic, almost dreamlike. But when John and I stepped onto the ship to reimagine this attraction, something clicked. I remember this moment vividly like it was yesterday. We were deep inside the Queen Mary. We were surrounded by pipes and the shadows, and we both had the same thought at the same time. What if Samuel didn't act alone? What if something darker, something ancient, something evil was driving him? So we set our version of the maze in the 1930s and the 40s, and the era when the murders supposedly occurred. And we transformed the maze into a crime scene investigation. It was led by this hard-boiled Philip Marlowe-style detective, and guests followed his trail through the ship as his voice narrated the case. And so is this noir mystery unraveling in real time. And at the end of his investigation, deep in the bowels of the Queen Mary, he finds the truth. A demonic force, a darkness that drove Samuel to kill and ultimately drove the detective to his own death. So when guests entered our version of B340, they weren't just walking into a haunted maze, they were stepping into the detective's final moments and facing the thing that destroyed him. Working on that ship, on something so sinister, so atmospheric, was a highlight of my career. And years later, in 2024, when 13th Floor Entertainment Group took over Dark Harbor, I had the chance to return to the Queen Mary once again to help create a sequel to B340. But those stories are for another night. But in the meantime, I have a question. Why do we keep returning to prisons, ships, mansions, and forgotten spaces to tell our Halloween stories? Well, I think it might be because when you build a haunt inside of a place with real history, real tragedy, real triumph, real human stories, the walls do half the storytelling for you. A scream park in a parking lot or some field can be super fun. I love them. And a haunted house in a warehouse or a theme park can be terrifying. But a haunt inside of a place that already has a soul? That is something different. These attractions remind us that Halloween isn't just about monsters and masks. It's about confronting the past, the mysteries, the things we can't quite explain. And when we step into these spaces, whether it's a prison cell, a ship corridor, or a twisting Victorian mansion, we're not just walking through a maze. We're walking through history. We're walking through memory. We're walking through the stories that refuse to stay silent. And that is why I love creating experiences in places that are already haunted. Haunted by spirits, by history, or simply by the weight of time inside the echoes of the past. And just like that, the lights dim on another shift. Huge thanks to our fear architect, Jonathan Casco of the Hauntline. Within these stories is the blueprint of fear itself, how we face it, how it transforms us, how we create it, and sometimes how it sets us free. If you liked what you heard, do us a favor and tell a friend to tell a friend. Give us a good review, 5 stars, and help spread the word. Thanks for spending your nightmares with us. I'm your host, Ted Doherty. Beast wishes, and until we meet again, it's officially time to clock out of Working the Fright Shift. Working the Fright Shift is written and produced by Ted Doherty. No portion of this recording may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written and express permission of the producer. All opinions expressed in this recording are solely those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views of the producer or affiliates. For more details, visit www.workingthefrightshift.com. Copyright 2026 Ted Doherty. All rights reserved.